I didn't know to ask that question. And within the first month that my parents were there, my dad fell. He wants someone there that's there all the time. Because accidents, illness, it just happened. Did not know any of this going in, and so many of us out there who are, in our 40s to 70 are going through this with our aging parents that are in their, 80s and 90s. And we have to make these tough decisions, but we've never done it before, so we don't know the questions to ask the facilities. Hey everyone, Jennifer here, and welcome to another edition of Live the Mod Life. Now this is part 2 of our Aging Parents series. This is the top 10 to 12 things I wish I knew when looking for a memory care and assisted living facility for my parents. So stay tuned, here we go. Most of the time, I would say probably 100% of the time, when people are looking for assisted living or even memory care, it's on a pretty urgent basis. It's kind of last minute, you're looking for a place, it's stressful, and most of us have never gone through this before. So my very first thing I wanted to tell you is talk to as many people as you can when you're contemplating the process or in the middle of all of a sudden having to do the process. Talk to people, ask them what they wish they knew, what they wish they asked the facility, what are the top 3 things they wish they would have looked for, what did they like, what did they not like. And again, just ask people around the country because you're going to get different answers. And I wish I would have had time to do that, and I didn't, but looking back, I could have made a few phone calls. So ask people that you know, and I'm glancing at my notes here because I don't want to miss anything. One of the places I went to initially was A Place for Mom, and we've all seen those commercials on television, A Place for Mom, and I actually found them really great. It was very, very helpful. I found the people that were on the phone, by and large, were very good. It can be hit or miss in terms of the person that you get connected with. These are, believe it or not, the last, I'll call it operator or person that was working with me that I talked to was dealing with 400 families. Just her was dealing with 400 families. And there are probably, I didn't ask how many people there were like her, but my guess is that there's hundreds. And so these people are busy, but this is what they do day in and day out. But just know that they're working with a lot of people. So, you got to be very, very clear on what you want and what you're looking for, but also just ask questions because you might not know what you want or what you're looking for because it's the first time. So if you're not really happy with the person you're working with, you can always ask to find someone else. But I found by and large, they were very, very helpful and very, very good and very caring, which is really great. So try that. Okay, this is something really subtle, but I wanted to share. When you're driving up to the facility to take a look at the signage. Because keep in mind, this is a place that most of the times, when you go to pick up your parents, you might take them out to lunch or out for ice cream or something, and they're going to see this signage too. Does the signage say in huge bold letters, memory care facility? Because the new trend right now is not to say that. They want to keep it very subtle, maybe just the name of the facility, and take it from there. And to me, that's important because my parents were really high functioning. I didn't want it, in big, bold, flashing letters, memory facility. And so I think that's something, for me, I think that's something important to look at. So just look for that. Look for the signage. Is it, when you drive up, is there plenty of parking for you? Because on weekends, these places get busy with a lot of visitors. You want to make sure that there's plenty of parking and an ease to get in and out of for people that might be in wheelchairs or walkers, etc., which is usually the case. They're usually really good about that. Okay, number 3, when you walk in and when you're walking around, when you're doing the tour, look at the staff. Do they seem tired? Do they seem, just not really engaged? Do they say hello? Do they seem happy? Are they smiling? Look at the residents. Are the residents smiling? Are the residents happy? I have to tell you, we are moving my parents to another facility, and so this time I knew what to look for. And I've gone to a few places, and I go in, and everyone looked to me like a zombie. They just did not look happy. There wasn't a lot going on. It was, I don't know, it just wasn't good. The staff, I didn't see a lot of staff to resident ratio. I didn't see that. I didn't see a lot of staff members running around. And so if I felt like, the staff could be a little bit overwhelmed. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. The place that I finally have selected, the residents came up, they started talking to me, they were very friendly, they were smiling, they were laughing. I know this isn't always the case, but I happened to catch this place on a really good day and I had a really good feeling about it because I did see that where I didn't see that in other places. So I think that's something really, really important to look at, to see, just see what the energy is at the place. Okay, next. This is probably one of the most important things, food. Because at the end of the day, this is what the people have to look forward to is their meals. And you want the food to be good. So you want to ask, how long has your chef been on staff? Or is it a chef? Is it a cook? What kind of food are you using? Are you using a lot of organic or natural foods? Are you following the Mediterranean diet? Sadly to say, most of these places aren't. Even the really high-end places aren't doing it. There are some out there, but a lot of them aren't. As we know, the Mediterranean diet is the best diet for all of us, but also for people with brain issues and memory issues. And I just find that a lot of these places don't serve that food, but it's certainly something to ask, and ask if that's something that they could accommodate. I think that's really important. Now here's another thing to ask that I didn't know. Can they be served the meals in their room? My parents were very private. They didn't want to always eat in the dining room. They wanted to eat in their room because that's their home. That's their new apartment. So that's something really important. And then you want to ask, is there an extra fee? Okay, I didn't know that. Is there an extra fee? Now, I was able to get the fee waived, but that is an extra fee in a lot of places to be served in the room, which, anyway, I could go on about that, but that's something really important because there's going to become days where your parents or parent is not going to feel like going into the dining room. They're going to want to stay in their room and eat. And so ask that question and make sure, that you get that extra charge knocked off because that's important. And I do feel that that's something you can negotiate. Okay. Let's see what else. Oh, here's another question around food. Can residents eat whenever they want? So the old model was, okay, we're serving breakfast from 7 to 9, we're serving lunch from 12 to 1, we are serving dinner from 4:30 to 6. But nowadays, 2025, the model is shifted and it should be, the residents can eat when they want, because there's going to be some days that they're going to be early risers, people up at 5:30. But there's also going to be, as your parents get older, like in their 90s, they're going to sleep in more. And maybe they don't get up until 9:45 and they get ready and they get dressed and they walk out. And if there's no food, they're hungry. So you want to make sure that they can eat when they want to eat. And I think that's something that is really, really important. The food, everything centers around the food for these residents because quite frankly, that's the one thing they really have to look forward to and they enjoy. So ask that. Also ask about beverages. My parents like coffee. Can they get coffee any time of the day? Will you bring it to them? Do they have to come out? Do they have to, when they push the button, can a caregiver bring them coffee? This is something very, very simple that I think the facility should do. It's something that a lot of the seniors really look forward to. Not all of them do it. So I think that that's something that's really important to ask. Ask about water. Will you see to it that my parents are staying hydrated? Because that's a big problem. My dad had to go to the ER 3 times because he was dehydrated. And you want to make sure that they are watching out for that and there's water always available in their room, fresh water. So that's something also really important to ask. And so that you are on top of knowing that they need to be given water. Another thing is if they take medications, you should ask them, are you giving them a full glass of water with their medications? Because that's kind of a subtle way of keeping them hydrated. So that's really key. I really insisted on that. It didn't always happen, but I wanted them to be given at least a 6 or 8 ounce glass of water with their medications because it was just another subtle way to keep them hydrated. And they don't always, oftentimes they'll do like a little Dixie cup, and that's not enough. They need to stay hydrated because that's very, very important for seniors. So just know that. That's something I feel really strongly about. Okay, laundry service and linens and towels. Question to ask. How often will the laundry be done? And usually places will say once a week. Well, for my parents, that wasn't enough. There was 2 of them in a room, my mom and dad, And you've got two people using the towels and my dad shaving, and it was just once a week wasn't enough. It was just, they would get dirty. So I requested I needed to have the towels washed at least twice a week, and washed and replaced twice a week. And they did do that. So that's something to ask. Also ask about linens. How often are the linens changed and cleaned? You minimum want it once a week, but I really feel as they get older, you want to do it twice a week. For various reasons, but you just ask if you can have that done twice a week. And also, how often is the room cleaned? Are they checking the trash? Is the facility checking their trash daily? Are dirty plates and cups taken out each evening or each morning? How often is the room vacuumed or mopped? These are important questions to ask. Toilet paper. Okay, here's a big one. I did not know. I had no clue. A lot of places want you to provide your own toilet paper. And when my parents first got there, they're like, we don't have any toilet paper. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh my God, for that price, you expect toilet paper. Ask that question. I did not know. And they said, well, the reason we don't provide the toilet paper is because everyone has different needs of the type that they use. Some people use bamboo, some people use, Charmin, some people use whatever, they use different brands. So ask that question. I didn't know to ask it. I think that's really key, really, really key. And then lastly, actually, I just had a thought going back to the food. My parents love sweet tea. They were from the South and love sweet tea. So I did ask when I was on the tour, could my parents be served sweet tea? Because I know it's not traditionally served in the, we're in the DC area. Can they be served? Oh yeah, we can serve them sweet tea. Well, their idea of the sweet tea was regular tea and then pouring sugar in it. But no, that's for those of you that are Southern, that's not sweet tea. So that was something we had to talk about, and ultimately, honestly, I had to end up bringing it in. So these are just things, again, I wish I knew. They're small little things, but they add up, and they're important to the resident that's living, our loved ones that are living in these places, okay? Okay, here's another question that I did not know ahead of time. Ask the question, what is the staff to resident ratio on the floor that your parents are going to be on? What is the staff to resident ratio? In other words, for every resident, how many staff members are there to support? You want to ask that question for many reasons. Oftentimes you're going to hear, oh, it's 1 to 10. Well, what if that person calls in sick? What do they do, right? So you want to ask that question. The other question is there a manager on that floor at all times? Is there a manager? So on the, let's say, memory care, is there an actual manager on that floor? And you're going to want to talk to that manager, just get to know them and see their personality and see if that's someone that you feel you can work with. That is key. Also, nurses. Are there nurses? Is there a nurse full-time on the facility, or how often do the nurses come to the facility? Okay, that's really important. Ideally, you want someone there that's there all the time. Because accidents, illness, it just happens. As we know, it always happens in the middle of the night on a Sunday night, right? It just always happens at the most inopportune time. And you want to know that they're being cared for. Okay, the last question around this area too is this. Typically residents will be given some sort of clicker or something that they can wrap around their neck or have in their hand that they can push. And that way if they fall, a resident will, a staff member will come and help them out. So you want to ask, what's your average response time when someone pushes the help button? What is your response time when a resident pushes the help button? I didn't know to ask that question. And within the first month that my parents were there, my dad fell. My mom didn't know where the button was. I said, go out and call for help. I mean, it was a fiasco. So what I did, and I just encourage you to do this too, when you go, and after you check your parents in, or you can ask, can we test it out, right? And you get a tester and you push the button and you see how long it takes them to get there. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have the button clicker thing until after my parents checked in, but we tested it one time. And it was 23 minutes. That's too long. That's too long, because if they're pushing the button, that means, usually they really need help. Or they're panicked or something. Or maybe they're pushing it just because, for no reason. But usually they're pushing it because they want something or want someone. 23 minutes is long. Okay, it should be, it should be quick. So, you know, I'm going to say it should be less than 3 minutes, but I don't know what the national average is. So that's just something you want to ask because, time is of the essence when these things come up. So spend time talking to the floor manager, ask about the staff to resident ratio, ask about the response time when people push the button for help. Fees, things I wish I knew. What is the move-in fee? Because when you get there, you're talking monthly rates, but then when you go to check in or when you sign that contract in like 0.3 font, it says there is a, $5,000 move-in fee. You want to know that ahead of time. That is something I feel is negotiable. It's negotiable. Particularly in my case when I had 2 people. I did not know that, but you want to ask that question. So they might call it a move-in fee, they might call it a facilities fee. These are just extra fees. And so you want to ask that question. What extra fees are involved here? Okay? What extra fees should I be made aware of? Okay, aside from the monthly fee, and what does that include? And then you want to ask, is there a medication distribution fee? Okay, for them to come around and distribute medications. Is that extra or is that included in the monthly rate? The place that I'm going to next for my parents includes that in the fee. Where they are now, it's extra. And let me tell you, it is not cheap. So you want to ask that question. It's really important because that money starts going like that. And also, as they get older, they might require more medications and that fee is going to go up and up and up. So try to find a place, I feel, where that medication fee is included in the monthly rate. It just makes all the difference, honestly. It just makes all the difference. Okay, here is another question. All right. Oh, regarding fees. What is the average rate increase every year? I didn't think to ask that question. I don't know. I was in a rush. I was in a panic. I was trying to get them in a place. I didn't know, had never done this before. And you'll find that answer very interesting, and it will vary from place to place. The place that I'm going to next with my parents, their increase is 1 to 2.5% every year. The place that I have them now, 10 to 15% every year. So that is something very, very key to ask, and also ask when those rates take place. Because if you move in November, the rate increase could be in January. So you want to ask, will my first rate increase be after 1 year? I think that's something really, really important. I did not think to ask that because I moved my parents in, I want to say it was like a June, and then by the time January rolled around, they had another huge rate increase. And so I always thought that the rate increase would hit after 1 year. So this is so key. I hope you find this helpful because these are things that I just did not know. Okay. A question I want to ask is when the caregivers or care managers come in to check on my parents or your parent, do they do a regular kind of just eye check, in terms of, eye check in terms of head to toe, my mom started getting a rash on her scalp and no one saw it. And, I saw it, but they, and if someone was really looking, they would have seen that. So you want to make sure someone's doing that. The other thing, and I know this is, it's hard to say, but I'm just going to say it. I did not think of this because I just thought the facilities would know this because they're dealing with seniors, but I did not see this. But something as simple as toenails, is someone checking the parents' toenails to see if they need trimming? It was just something that I didn't even think of. It wasn't even on my radar. And one day my mom was saying that her feet were hurting. And I looked and I pulled off her sock and I was just mortified. Okay, her nails had not been trimmed in like 7 months. And, it's embarrassing. I don't know, it's just a terrible thing. I felt like it was neglect. And so that is something important to ask, but also important to check when you're going to check in on your parents. Again, it was just something I didn't even think of. Okay? Okay, laundry. You want to ask about laundry services. How often? Now that I feel can also be negotiated because they will always say once a week. But in my parents' case, that wasn't enough because it was two people in the room and they both were sharing towels and things like that. So you want to make sure that the laundry, I feel twice a week is a really good time. Just for someone to come in, check on their clothes, what are they wearing? And also you want to ask how they organize the laundry. Ask this question, how do you organize the laundry so it doesn't get mixed up with other residents' laundry? That's a big problem in these places. I'm just gonna say it, it is. And I was at a top-notch place and the laundry was getting, they didn't have a really good tracking system down. Part of this was because it's a new facility, which I'll get into in a second. A new facility, they just don't quite have their systems down yet. So you want to ask, how does your laundry system work? Because I want to avoid their clothes getting mixed up with other people's clothes. And that, honestly, it's a problem. So you want to ask that question because that's very common at these centers and your parents, get their laundry back and it's mixed up with other people's clothes. So I like twice a week laundry and ask those questions how it's handled. Also, how often are their sheets cleaned? You want to make sure that they're cleaned and make sure that your parents have at least 2 to 3 sets of sheets in their room, okay? Let's see, what else? Look at sunshine and natural light because that's really important. I mean, my parents are older, they're, 90s. But you want to make sure they're getting some sunlight. And so look at the rooms, try to pick a room that has a lot of sunlight. I think the newer places do. And actually some of the older places have bigger windows, I found. So that's something to look at. How often are they able to get outside? Do they let them outside when they're in memory care? Are they able to get out and get some fresh air? Is someone taking them out? Or do you have to come in to take them out? Or even better, do you have to hire someone to come in and take them out? That's a whole nother thing that I did not know about. When you get in these facilities and you want little bit of extra care for your parents, you have to hire a third-party person to come in. So that's also part of the expense that I did not know about. So you really want to get clear on what the facility caregivers will do and not do. That's just so key. Another little thing I would ask, can my parents get a newspaper delivered to the room? Do you provide newspapers and magazines for your residents to read? Some places are going to say yes, and some places are going to say no. You have to buy it, and you have to have it mailed here and delivered. So these are things that, again, I wish I knew ahead of time because I was blindsided when I just thought, what do you mean you don't have a newspaper laying around for the residents to read? Or are there some magazines that they can read? Or, is there a library? Things like that. You just want to ask. Because even though they might have some memory issues, they still, at least my parents, they still like to look at the newspaper. They still like to, read magazines. They still like to look at books, read books, things like that. So you want to ask those questions and really get a clear definition of what is the day in the life like. And also, you want to make sure that they have options not to participate. My parents were not interested in participating in a lot of the games and things like that. They were like, we've been there, we've done that. They didn't drink, so they didn't want to do happy hour. But that's just them. Other people might want to, but you want to ask to make sure that your loved one isn't forced, basically, to take part in the issue, in the game or happy hour, or whatever it is. You want to make sure that they have the option to stay in their room if they want to. Okay. And let's see, I think that is it. Oh, one other question. It's probably not the best to leave you on, but it's important. You want to ask, particularly if your parents are in memory care, do they have residents that scream? They're called screamers. And these are people that, they have dementia, they have Alzheimer's, and they're loud, they might swear a lot, and so you want to ask that question. And they might say, no, we don't have any now. And you can say, well, what's your policy if you do get someone in, or even if your parent all of a sudden starts doing that? What do they do? And you want to find out what they do. Because I think some places they might have a separate wing that they can put them in. Some places, I think they ask you to move to another facility that might be better equipped to handle that. So those are just things you might want to ask. Again, this isn't the best topic, but I feel it's so important for people to know. I did not know any of this going in, and so many of us out there who are, in our 40s to 70 are going through this with our aging parents that are in their, 80s and 90s. And we have to make these tough decisions, but we've never done it before, so we don't know the questions to ask the facilities. I hope that this has been helpful to you, and I wish you all the luck in your journey. In the comments, if you have any other feedback or any other tips for people viewing this video, please add it to the comments because it's so important. I don't have all the answers. I'm just sharing my experience with you. And remember, it's not midlife, it's Mod.Life, and you got this. See you soon.